What's up, guys? It's Julian. Today I'm going to be talking to you about something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is why it really doesn't matter if you use samples or sample packs or loops even. And today I'm going to convince you guys why it doesn't matter and why you need to stop worrying about it. Now, before I start this video, I want to let you guys know you can grab all of my sample packs at the top of the description on my website or on my Bandcamp. Everything is pretty cheap, just $5, $10, $15, $20. Very affordable and accessible. But it's some of the best sample packs on the market. I've really put a lot of time and hours into making some of the best resources for producers out there. I live for this stuff, and I've always wanted these sample packs to exist. And they're all right there at the top of the description for you guys to just go and grab and really take your productions to the next level. I've created this stuff with the goal of not just making something to sell, but really making a resource that the producer world needs. I was just like you guys, discovering like Burial and Fortet and techno and house and all that kind of music and wondering how these guys are making these tracks. Well, I've demystified it for you. The link is right in the top of the description. So definitely go grab some stuff from there. Again, it really helps support me. If I've ever helped you with any of these videos, or if you guys have ever learned anything from my videos, definitely go grab that. Even if you just watched my videos, again, it's just like $5 for a sample pack. Really helps support me and keep me going. Thank you so much for all the support, guys, and let's dive in. So, the first thing that I think is really important to keep in mind with using samples and loops is no one just takes a sample straight out of the pack and uses it. Even something that even if they do that, even if you're hearing a track where it's literally just a loop on a blank Ableton track with no effects, they're still mastering, there's still stuff that's happening to that sample that is going to make it not just that, that is going to take it to the next level. And I think the idea that certain producers are just using loops straight out of the sample pack and it's just so easy for them to make that track, I think this is honestly a fantasy that's perpetuated by people who take techno and house and all that kind of stuff way too seriously. They all want to tell you about how, 128 BPM main room techno, they're just using loops from sample packs and it's all, dude, it just doesn't work that way. It's a fantasy, and the more that we work to get rid of that idea and that stigma, the better it's going to be for everybody, because we're all going to realize the stuff that I'm about to tell you in the rest of this video. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, is separate yourself from this fantasy that techno purists have, that there's some dude out there that's just dragging the samples straight in and it just takes 10 minutes to make a track. Even if you were doing that, it would take so much time to make the track sound really good, and so much work and understanding and effort that it just isn't as simple as that. And again, I think that there's a lot of people out there might be a little bit jealous, might be a little bit sad that they can't quite do it themselves, or that they haven't figured out how to do it themselves. So they kind of make up this fantasy that, oh yeah, those guys, no, they just use sample pack loops, whatever, to kind of cut the people who are doing well down. But it just doesn't work that way. Even if you made a track of entirely sample pack loops, you would still have to have the skill of being able to mix the track and understand how loud the kick and bass should be, how loud the hi-hat should be. Even just understanding that the kick and bass need to be grouped together. So I think that's the first thing to really keep in mind there. Is it's kind of a fantasy, and it's something that I think really we need to do away with, because it just doesn't work that way, The second rule here, and the second reason why I think it doesn't really matter, is it's extremely hard to have a successful track. People act like, oh, you just make this one style of techno and boom, you have a Beatport #1. Well, go ahead and try and do that. Go on Beatport right now and figure out what the #1 track is. Make a track exactly like that and send it to that label and see what's going to happen. Exactly. It's extremely hard to have a successful track. And it doesn't just come just because you made the right style. There's a lot of people out there right now making the most popular styles that nobody knows about. And it doesn't just happen just because, oh, they got the Acid 303 techno pack and made an acid tracker. Oh, they got the tech house, repopulate Mars style, John Summit type stuff, and now they just do that and they're gonna be big. It's dude, there's so much more that goes into that, which is relationships, your ability to just not be a weirdo, and your ability to kind of get in with people and become friends with people at the big labels, and that you need to hear your music. It is, just like I said, mixing stuff, just being able to understand, how the kick and bass should be mixed. There's so much more that's going to go into having that successful track. Even just, the right moment, even just, You know, and it's so much that you can't say, oh, this person just got a tech house sample pack, made a tech house track, and that's why they're successful. Because trust me, there's a lot of people trying to do that right now, and it doesn't just come just because you're doing the popular style. You know, there's so much more to that, and that could be a whole video in and of itself. But yeah, like I think that's the second thing people really need to keep in mind is like having a successful track. It's not just, oh yeah, I stopped trying to make everything myself and just use sample packs, and all of a sudden I had success. Like, there's just so much more that has to go into that. And a lot of times, the people who have had success, you know, having a track where it was all loops or all from a sample pack or something like that, it's because they put in years of work leading up to that to be able to do that. And like, you don't see that, and you like it's not really talked about, but that's really, I think, a big part of it. It's not just the sample pack. The third tip here that I think is really important to keep in mind is that you still have to build an original track around the sample too. Like, if you just go in a sample pack and say you grab like a kick and bass loop or something like that, and like, yeah, like you might have kind of been a little bit lazy because you didn't go and make the kick and the bass yourself. Well, you still have to make a melody, you still have to make hi-hats, you still have to make percussion, and all that kind of stuff, even if you have the best kick and bass in the world, are still not really going to sell it. You know, you still have to like kind of have that stuff be really good as well. It's not just because you're just using this one sample, you know. So I think that's something to keep in mind too, is like there's still like the skill of building a track around a sample, and like I think that is, you know, very underrated. And I know this too because I have personally made some tracks using sample pack loops, and later I listened back, did not sound very good. And it's not because I used the loop, it's because I didn't understand how to do everything around it. So like, I think that's something you really got to keep in mind. And anybody who's produced for even a day, or even just tried to open up Ableton and make a song, would understand this. Like, these are not like hard things to understand. Like, these are things that you understand pretty much as soon as you start trying to make music, right? And then the fourth tip that I think is arguably the most important here, and probably the most universal, is to just stop overthinking music. You know, it's like everybody wants to say like it's like the principle behind it. Like, everybody wants to be able to say, oh yeah, I made this sample myself in Serum, and then I made it, and then I processed it, and then I made it into a rumble kick. And it's like, that's kind of overthinking it, dude. Like, yeah, you can really study, like, alright, here's how I'm going to take, like, an envelope and, like, perfectly shape it to get, like, a fat techno kick. And then, like, we're using this perfect combination of, like, FM and different wavetables and stuff. But, like, if there's a better kick sample, either sampling from a track or from a sample pack, you know, like, it just makes so much more sense to use that. Because at the end of the day, like, you're really putting if you're trying to make the kick from scratch and use a synth and do all that kind of stuff, you're putting a lot of effort into something that really isn't going to make that much of a difference. And you need to keep in mind, like, where to think a lot and where to think a little bit. Because there's a lot of people that have made a lot of music where they synthesized every single sound, and, you know, they sat there and it took 3 months to do it, and it's like, it just goes nowhere. And that emotional connection with the track is usually not there. And a lot of times you're actually further away from getting that emotional connection because they overthought so many other things than that. So that's really like what it's got to come down to, is like, stop overthinking music and understand like where it's worth it to put a lot of thought in, and where you really need to just stop doing that and say, hey, this is a better option to use this kick loop or to use this hi-hat loop or whatever it may be, and go for that and move on to the next thing. Because ultimately, like, you can overthink it, you can spend a lot of time studying like how to synthesize a kick or how to do all these little things. It's not really going to make better music, and you're probably going to be more jaded and salty at the end when you've spent all this time learning how to do that stuff and you still don't have anything to show for your music. So I think this is really, really important to keep in mind. It's like, a lot of this stuff, you know, it kind of comes down to some different feelings that other people have kind of put out into the world, like with the whole fantasy of you just use the right sample pack and then you get super famous. You know, again, it's also super hard to have a successful track, and you still have to build a good track around the sample. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to just not overthinking it, getting the track done, and making something that can emotionally connect with a lot of people. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I just wanted to talk to you guys about something I feel really passionate about. You know, I have definitely been on both sides of this argument in the past, and having produced for a long time now, it really does not matter. Like, use sample packs, use loops, and try to build really good tracks around them. You know, it's going to give you something really solid to kind of build your track on so that you can focus on the things that really matter and ultimately make your best music. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. Like I said in the beginning, definitely go grab some of my sample packs and loops at the top of the description. These are the best producer resources on the market. I've put in a ton of hours trying to make you guys the best stuff that you can really learn from and really take your tracks to the next level with. Plus, it's all super affordable. It's really a no-brainer. Just go right to the link at the top of the description. Check out some of the samples. I guarantee you will love them. And yeah, thank you so much for the support, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.